So why tea? What was going through your mind? Why did you know tea was going to work, and specifically bubble tea?
Well, I was in the restaurant industry kind of through college. I'd worked in every role: busboy, food runner. I worked in the line. I was waiter. Kind of did everything, and I knew the complexities of running a full scale restaurant. I also knew that it was something I could do, but really, there was a bubble tea shop I was sitting in a few years before we had gotten married. And I remember sitting in there, and it was dirty. The service sucked. It was crowded. The product was great. The menu was confusing. So the experience was terrible, right? And I remember thinking to myself, gosh, this place is really busy. We could do this, but we could do this so much better. We could really put our twist on it and really nail it. And so it was a fairly lower barrier to entry thing. There weren't established bubble tea franchises, so it wasn't I'm going to go and get a franchise. So we got to be able to create something out of the dirt.
Yeah.
And that was really appealing to me.
And there's a lot of power, and this is something that comes up a lot, and it's a trend that I've definitely picked up on interviewing so many successful restaurateurs, is that when you do something and you're the first to do it, you're automatically the best at it. So when you go someplace, you're instantly if you came to DSW, right, Dallas Fort Worth area, there weren't many bubble tea, if any, right?
There's a handful, and they were
all,
some of them were just restaurants that happened to carry it as side product.
So if you come into a market and you want to focus on one thing, right, and that isn't being done, you're instantly number one. And there's a lot of power in being the best at something.
Sure.
Right? Do you want to reflect on that?
Yeah, I think the other thing that helped us kind of focus, we knew we wanted just to do bubble tea. A lot of other kind of Taiwanese chains at the time, over in Asia, did food and did all these things. We're just going to do this one thing, and we're going to do it really, really, really well.
Yeah.
And that's what we focused on.
Yes. And some of my research, I saw that traditionally bubble tea has upwards of 100 or 150 different flavors, right?
That's right.
So
we pared the menu down. We really try and tighten up the concept, and we chose not to do food. And I think the risk for us was going in and having to educate. So we had this really great product, we thought, but nobody knew about it. So it wasn't we were selling burgers, right? We weren't selling hot dogs. We were selling something that a lot of people had never experienced.
Yeah.
It's totally foreign. So that was probably the biggest hurdle on the front end. It was getting to create this fun, unique experience. And that's kind of one of my big drivers is if you spend time with me, if I experience something and I really get value out of it, I don't just want to keep it for myself. I'm going to say, we got to go check this place out. Or you've got to go eat this, or you've got to try this. Because it gives me a ton of I get a lot of joy out of that, creating and sharing unique experiences.
Yeah, and when you're truly passionate about it, that energy is so obvious. And you know what I mean? And it comes out, when you're really passionate about it and you want to share something, and that goes into the experience. But so just to kind of summarize, the power of doing one thing really well. And when you can do one thing really, really well, you're going to be the best. Especially if it's not being done yet, you're going to be number one instantly. And then if you narrow it down and just do that one thing, you're going to you put so much distance between you and everybody else, right? Because you're just putting all of your energy into doing that one thing really well, which is what I'm hearing from you. And then the other thing that you brought to the surface is just creating experiences. So I think we have to explain a little bit more about what bubble tea is to kind of paint that picture of why drinking it alone is an experience for somebody who's never had it before.
For sure.
So what exactly is the bubble tea? What is the tapioca? What's the story behind
bubble tea originated in Taiwan during the 80s, and so there's a bunch of different kind of renditions of a story, but the story goes is effectively there were a bunch of tea stands. Taiwan's really hot in the summertime, so there's a lot of tea stands, and all these vendors are competing for kids after school money. So they'd set them up outside the schools, and what they would do is they would take tea and milk or tea and juice, and to get everything to mix together, they'd put it in a cocktail shaker and they'd shake it. And because it's hot, they'd serve it cold, right? So obviously tea is the number one beverage over there outside of water, right? And so they were selling a lot of tea, trying to get kids to drink it. And so what one vendor did to differentiate himself is he got tapioca, which is a common staple in a lot of desserts over there. So he would add tapioca to the bottom of the drink, and then you served it with this really fat straw. That's where we got our name. My wife came with that name, and it just completely.
You need the fat straw to get the big chunks.
That's
up,
right.
Yeah.
And so it became this like really unique, textural, like visually appealing experience. It was like it just looked cool. There's lots of color in the drink, and then there's a texture component to it.
Exactly, which is in itself the experience.
That's
right?
the experience.
So just trying the drink for the first time, you're creating an experience because it's so unique. It's so left field, right?
Right.
Especially to Western culture. Just a fun fact: I was researching tapioca. It's tapioca, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Originated in Brazil. I didn't even it's crazy how we grow up, we have these perceptions of things coming from certain places.
Right,
You think of tapioca tea coming from Asia, but it really came from Brazil. Same thing with potatoes. Like, you always think potatoes, Ireland, right? Growing up. And then oh, no, that came from Peru. You're like, this is crazy. Fun facts. Anyway, moving forward. So what else were you doing to elevate this experience in the early days?
Yeah, so, I mean, the thing is, like, we're going to spend a lot of time, obviously, on the product and the way it looks, but branding was really important. But I think, again, I go back to, like, how we make people feel. There's no substitute. Like, if I go to a place, they can miss on, like, the interior. They can miss on, maybe even kind of miss on the product. Mm-hmm. But if they make me feel great, if the hospitality, they're really serving hospitality, that's usually, I think, is a great recipe for success. And so I thought back to, like, what did my mom do? Right?
Yeah.
And like, what were those experiences?
Yeah.
And so we just got to know people.
I love it.
Right? And engage them. And a lot of people were like, hey, like, just I think being transparent, kind of being vulnerable and saying, hey, like, how's this drink? Like, it's not great. Like, what would you do to make it better? So we actually, a lot of our drinks sometimes came from the feedback of our customers. Like, hey, could you make this?